Welcome back to another video. I am Toby and today I'm going to show you what you need to know when you want to export your audio files from your DAW to send them over to someone else for mixing or mastering, for example. So, let's go! First of all, I have a couple of examples from files I recently got for mastering, and the first file, this one here, all I can say to this is, sorry, I cannot work with these files. And the reason for this is because there hasn't been enough headroom and all transients are cut off straight. There is no way to bring these transients back. This is the reason why we are always talking about leaving enough headroom. It's easy to boost the volume later. You can always bring up the volume, but you cannot bring back cut off transients. This file, the second one, is a little bit better, but still transients cut off. This is, it should look like there's enough headroom. This would be a file we could work with. If your file looks like this, there's something wrong. And what there could be wrong, I would show you in a minute. Now you could say, Toby, why don't you bring down the fader a couple dB? And I will show you what happens when I bring down the fader a couple dB. Now let's see on the meters what happens. I cannot let you hear these tracks because of copyright, but you can see the volume meter, they are clipping. And when I bring down the fader, look what happens. Let's say about minus 10 dB. So now we have enough headroom, but it does not change the actual file itself. Let's use EQing to bring down the volume about 10 dB. So now you can see it's still straight, it's still cut off. And no matter how quiet I bring that down, the transients are not coming back. Let's zoom a little bit in and you see it's straight cut off. So let's see what could have been wrong with these files. So I have a couple of drum files here. And now let's say I want to export these files to send them over to someone else for mixing or mastering or whatever. And first of all, let's see if there's anything clipping. It's not clipping yet. We have about 5 dB of headroom. That could be okay, would work, but don't go over this. Another thing we should talk about is the terms itself. I'm always asked about stems and tracks. So let's make this clear. These are all single tracks. Is it a hi-hat track, a snare track, a kick track? Now, when we route them all together in a mixbus, for example, and let's say we add another track, and let's call that drum track. And the input for this one is the mixbus. And now this drum track is a stem. This is a drum stem. We have all drum tracks combined in one single stem. Sometimes you can inquire for stem mastering, for example, and this would be where you could send your stems, and you would have a drum stem, for example, and vocal stem, and a guitar stem, and whatever. These are all single instruments combined in one track. If you would like to have a cheat sheet at your place where you can take a look what you need to know or what to pay attention for when you want to export your files and want to send them over to someone else, I have a link in the description down below where you can download my file preparation cheat sheet. And so you could keep it at your workplace and always have a look what you need to know, what you pay attention for before exporting and sending your files to someone else. Another thing to pay attention for before you export your tracks is make sure there is no plug-in activated on your final output. In this case, it's a stereo out bus. This is the channel where everything goes through before Cubase export this file. And this limiter, for example, every track and every instrument would go through this limiter. Make sure this is turned off. After that, make sure it's not clipping and there's enough headroom left without the limiter. Except you have dedicated mixbus, for example, and you have mixed through the mixbus, like in top-down mixing, for example. Then this mixbus might be a part of your unique sound, and then you should not turn these off. But if you have just a limiter, for example, or just a compressor to make sure you have enough headroom or you're not clipping, turn these off, bring down the faders, check for headroom, and then export your files without any plugin on your mixbus. Also make sure that there are no plugins clipping, except from plugins that emulate hardware, for example. And let's take the Chaps Omni channel just as an example. Now my snare drum is running to the Omni channel, and I would clip this one it can be a nice kind of saturation that you want to have. Because of these plugins are sometimes emulated after original analog hardware, and they emulate the behavior of these analog gear. And sometimes clipping analog gear can result in a nice harmonic saturation, but you don't want to clip in the digital world. Digital clipping does not sound nice in any way. So the next is make sure you have slight fades at the beginning and at the end of the clips, that there's no cracking or clicking or anything when you start playing this back. And after that, set the locators. We have a start locator and an end locator, and important that you have the same starting point for every track. If you have different starting points for each track, there's no way for that person you can send the files to bring the tracks together as they should be. So just set up the same starting point. It's now at bar 20. And for example, in Cubase, we would now go to export audio mix down and would export the area between the locators. Next important thing is set the format, the tempo rate and bit depth like the same you have worked in before. In this case, it's 44.1 kilohertz at 24 bit, and I would export at 44.1 kilohertz and 24 bit. And choose a file type that is not compressed, no MP3 or no MP4 or whatever kind of compressed file. Go for raw formats like WAV, for example. And then you are ready. You can export and you can send them files to whoever should work on these files next. So, and that's it for today's video. You now know that you should pay attention for your headroom, because of as soon as your transients are cut off, there's no way to bring the cut off transients back. So make sure you have enough headroom. Make sure there's no plugin on your mix bus or master bus, except from you have a dedicated mix channel that you mix through, like in top-down mixing, for example, where you mix through a compressor from the beginning. That can make a dedicated sound you're going for. But if you have just some kind of limiter or anything else to make sure you're not clipping on the final mix bus, turn them off to reduce cutting off transients. Make sure you have enough headroom after you have turned these plugins off, and make sure there's no channel clipping and no plugin clipping, except from it's a plugin that emulates analog hardware. That might be a part of your personal sound. And after that, export, send over, and you're ready to go. If there was something in this video you found helpful, please give me a thumbs up button, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet. And have a nice day. See you in the next video. Ciao.